Everybody, welcome to Tristan and his Whiteboard Live. And as you can see, this is what happens when your daughter comes over after school and decides to draw on the whiteboard. Quite entertaining. I was kind of wondering why the dog looks like a centipede with a number of different legs. Anyway, a lot of fun for everybody, and we'll erase that for now. She's having issues with death, I think, or something going on there. So, all right, today we're going to talk about closing costs. First thing, of course, on the list is, what are closing costs? Closing costs are those funds needed by the lender and the closing department to complete the loan. They include things such as origination fee, the appraisal, the closing fee at the title company itself, all of your recording fees, etc., etc., etc. Everything that we need to do to take care of the loan process and getting it closed. The other part of closing costs, though, that we don't often talk about is the prepaids. So those are the insurance at the beginning. You always have to pay a year in advance for insurance. So that whole amount gets paid up front at closing time, as well as the lender is going to take out 2 to 3 months worth of taxes and 2 to 3 months worth of insurance to kind of have a cushion for later on when they start paying those payments out for you when you buy the property. So typically speaking, the closing costs end up being around 2 to 3% of the purchase price to get all those fees taken care of. So if you will have a property sellers, and we're going to talk to the sellers first regarding these closing costs that the buyer has. If you've got a property around or under the $250,000 price point, you can expect that a buyer is probably going to ask for closing costs. Here's the deal. The buyer has to come up with 3 to 3.5% down payment probably. Then they also have to come up with another 3% for closing costs potentially. Now, a lot of buyers don't have that. They don't have that much cash put away to do that. So to purchase your home, you may have to give some money to the buyer to help them purchase your home. Unfortunately, this is the way things are right now. It's pretty commonplace for that to happen. Not a lot of people have 10% in their accounts to go ahead and use for down payment and for closing costs. Just expect that could be in the offer. Now, it is completely negotiable. They can say, you know what, I want 3% for my closing costs. You can come back and say, no, we'll give you 2%, or no, I'm going to give you 1%, or I'm only going to give you $500. It is a completely negotiable item, but just know that if the buyers are cash strapped, they might not be able to purchase your home at all unless you help them with all of the closing costs. Depending on the type of buyer, where you're at, those things can happen. Also, know that, let me see where I'm at here. That money isn't like coming out of your pocket right away. If they ask for $5,000 for the closing costs, you're not reaching in your wallet and pulling out five crisp $1,000 bills, like we all have in our wallets. That will just come out of closing at closing. So instead of getting $100,000 cash, if you were to once everything's said and done, you only get $95,000. At closing, they take that $5,000 from your account, move it over to the buyer's account, and you wouldn't exactly see it aside from that amount subtracted from your total amount coming out. Okay, does that make sense? So some people have thought, hey, I got to pay $5,000 cash for these people. Forget about it. It does come out of closing, still coming out of your total proceeds, but possibly a necessary item to help get your property sold. Okay, FYI. Okay, now number 3, of course, we're going to talk to you buyers. As probably you have understood, the sellers may not have a lot of interest in helping you buy the home with the closing costs that they may have paid themselves when they bought the home back a few years ago. They're already looking at spending X amount of money for their realtor fees, plus then also spending money to help you get into the home isn't always a fun prospect. So consider this when you're making your offer, that if you ask for 3% of the closing costs, and then you also ask, or let's say you ask for $5,000 to help pay closing costs, and you come in under $10,000 as the asking price, the sellers are looking at that as asking for $15,000 low. That's just what they're going to look at because they're looking at their bottom line, right? So you're going to be considering that as well when you make that offer. If you need a considerable amount of closing costs, you may need to offer closer to that asking price. And sometimes we've done it before. We've actually given a little higher over asking price to pull in some of those closing costs. So that is an option, something we may talk to your realtor about to see how that might work for you. The other thing you might need to consider is if you're working with a bank or a lender that has a high amount of closing costs, there are other lenders in town that have no origination fees, they have lower closing costs, and still do a very good job with getting the process done. I've worked with a few of them. A lot of them will help you in that process. So you may need to consider to go to a different lender that offers little lower closing costs, and of course make sure that you check all states, make sure the interest rate's the same, all the other things, so that you have a better chance of purchasing a home, especially in a tight market where if you're competing with a number of other offers, if you need a lot of closing costs and somebody else needs just a few or none at all, chances are you're not going to be winning out in that scenario. So in a tough spring market, especially here in Rapid City, you might need to consider either moving to another lender. You might need to consider going into maybe not asking for all the closing costs. Maybe you can spend a few more thousand on the closing costs and only ask the seller for a certain percentage. There are also some down payment assistance programs that you can possibly look into, and those might help cover your down payment so you've got more cash to play with your closing costs. All these are different options to hopefully get you into the property as well without having a whole lot of closing costs to offer as well. That being said, if you need all your closing costs paid for, ask for it, see what happens. You can always do that. So hope that clears up any questions I've got for you about closing costs. Of course, every situation is different and unique. Make sure you talk with your lender and your realtor about how you can make it best for you in your situation, whether you're the buyer or the seller. All right, thanks so much for watching Tristan and his Whiteboard Live. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.